My sister always said, I'm the responsible one. But when I found out she was secretly embezzling money from our family's company, I turned her into the board. Growing up, there was never any question about who the responsible one was in our family. From the time I could walk, my older sister, Nora, had a knack for taking charge. People said she was born mature, always the first to help mom organize her purse or stack dad's business files neatly in a pile. Even at 7, she had that rare combination of ambition and follow-through, while I, Lara, was the creative one, the free spirit. West Hartford, Connecticut, our small, predictable suburb, was the kind of place where people knew each other's business. We were known as the Cartwright sisters, daughters of Joanna and Ed, founders of Cartwright Solutions, a small tech company that serviced local businesses. When people asked what our parents did, I'd say, they helped computers talk to each other, which wasn't far from the truth. The business had started in our garage, with Dad burning the midnight oil after his day job, and Mom handling the calls and finances. Over the years, it grew into a decently successful company, and by the time we were in high school, it was thriving. Every summer, while other kids went to camp or part-time jobs at the local ice cream shop, we were conscripted into helping out at Cartwright Solutions. Nora was always up front, eagerly learning the ropes. She was doing data entry by 12, handling payroll calculations by 15, and reviewing accounts with Dad by 16. Me? I was in the back, answering phones, filing papers, and sometimes, if I could manage to sneak it, reading a novel under the desk. Mom always patted Nora on the back, saying, "You're the one who's going to take this business forward, Nora. Your father and I are lucky to have you." And every time she said it, Nora would glance over at me with a small, almost imperceptible smile. It wasn't a mean smile, but it was definitely a mom's right smile. Nora didn't need to compete, she was the clear winner. But the strange thing was, I didn't mind. For as long as I could remember, Nora had been the responsible one, and I'd been not. After college, I moved to Boston, about 2 hours away, and found work in marketing. Meanwhile, Nora stayed in West Hartford, diving headfirst into the family business. By 25, she was already Cartwright Solutions' chief financial officer, overseeing the company's finances with an iron grip and never missing a deadline. I'd get these calls from her, the kinds of conversations where she'd update me on every tiny detail, even though I wasn't involved in the day-to-day operations. "I think we need to start considering diversifying our assets," she'd say, as if I knew or cared what she meant. "I'm looking at new investments, maybe some real estate. It's about long-term stability." "Whatever you think, Nora," I'd reply, struggling to keep the yawn out of my voice. "You've got this under control, right?" She'd sigh with exasperation. "Yes, Lara, I have it under control. But this is our family business, too. One day, you're going to need to know all of this." "Right. Got it. Just let me know when that day comes." Every conversation left me feeling like I was somehow the irresponsible child again. But I didn't care enough to change it. That was her world, her turf. She wanted to run Cartwright Solutions, she could have it. Besides, I was engaged to a guy named Tony, who had just as many big dreams as I did. Life was good. Then, about a year ago, our father had a heart attack. I remember getting the call from Mom late at night. Her voice was shaky and quiet. "Lara, your dad's in the hospital." It was a heart attack. The blood drained from my face. I got in my car and drove to Hartford, barely remembering the drive. By the time I reached the hospital, Mom and Nora were there. Nora was pacing, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. She looked at me with a mixture of exhaustion and relief. "He's stable," she whispered, pulling me into a hug. "It was close, but they say he's going to make it." In the weeks that followed, Dad's health stabilized, but it was clear he wasn't the same. He couldn't work those grueling hours anymore, and he admitted he was ready to retire. Our parents moved to Vermont, leaving Cartwright Solutions in the hands of us, the Cartwright sisters. I tried to convince myself it was a temporary situation, that Nora would keep managing things, and I could just continue working remotely, helping out when needed. But Dad insisted that we share the responsibility. "It's important that both of you know the business," he said firmly, looking between us. "Nora's going to handle the financials, but I want you to take on client relations, Lara. You have a knack for talking to people." Reluctantly, I agreed. I didn't want the responsibility, but I couldn't say no to my dad in that moment. He looked so tired, so defeated, and I realized then how much Cartwright Solutions had taken out of him over the years. And so, just like that, Nora and I were running a business together. Things went smoothly at first. Nora kept me updated with weekly reports, full of numbers that might as well have been hieroglyphics to me. I nodded, pretended to understand, and continued with the client-facing side of things. It worked. Until the email from Derek, one of the board members. "Hey, Lara," the email read, "just wanted to run something by you. Some of these expenses don't seem to match up with the quarterly projections Nora provided. Can you take a look?" Expenses? I had no idea what he was talking about. I called him up, trying to play it cool. "Derek, what's going on? I asked, casually leaning back in my chair, even though my heart was pounding. He cleared his throat, sounding uncomfortable. It's probably nothing, but there are these expense reports. They're a bit unusual. Unusual how? I pressed, my mind racing. Well, there are some checks issued that don't match any vendor names I recognize, and a few payments marked as consulting fees, but we don't have consultants listed on payroll. I assured Derek I'd check with Nora and hung up, my stomach churning. I sent her an email that night, half joking, half nervous. Nora, are you running some secret project on the side? Derek's asking about consulting fees I don't know about, haha. No response. I waited, checked my phone a dozen times, refreshed my inbox, and told myself she was probably just busy. But 2 days later, I still hadn't heard from her, and my curiosity was morphing into something darker, suspicion. Finally, I decided to go down to the office. Nora was supposed to be there, but when I arrived, her assistant told me she had stepped out for an appointment. My fingers itched as I walked into her office. The desk was immaculate, but I knew where she kept the files. I pulled out the financial reports, digging through them until my fingers started cramping. What I found made my head spin. There were transactions, hundreds of thousands of dollars, being funneled into strange accounts, some marked as consulting fees, others as development projects. A few checks had my name signed at the bottom, in a signature that wasn't quite mine but was close enough. My stomach turned as the pieces fell into place. Nora was embezzling money from our own family's company. I remember sitting there, the weight of that realization pressing down on me like a boulder. This wasn't some mistake. This was intentional. My sister, Nora, the responsible one, was stealing. That night, I couldn't keep it to myself any longer. I called her, half expecting her to deny everything, to laugh it off, to tell me I'd made a mistake. But when she answered, there was a pause after I told her what I'd found. Finally, she sighed. Lara, it's complicated. My voice trembled as I tried to keep calm. Complicated? Nora, this looks like theft. And don't tell me this is all for the company. There was silence, then a deep, shuddering breath on the other end of the line. It's not for the company. It's for Sam. I blinked. Sam? Your husband? Why does Sam need this kind of money? Nora's voice broke. He has a problem, Lara. A gambling problem. He's in deep, and I'm trying to help him. I thought I could fix it before anyone noticed. I thought I could repay it. I closed my eyes, the anger mixing with pity. Nora, how long has this been going on? A year, maybe more, she whispered. I didn't think it would get this bad. I thought I could manage it. My mind was spinning, my heart pounding. Do Mom and Dad know? No. And you're not going to tell them, right? Her voice was almost pleading. Lara, please. Give me time. I'll fix it. I was silent for a long moment, gripping the phone so hard my hands started to ache. My head was spinning, heart pounding, as Nora's confession sank in. All these years, she'd been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong, the one holding herself above the rest of us. And here she was, secretly destroying everything our parents had built, risking everything for her husband's gambling addiction. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady.
Nora, I need to think about this.
What's there to think about? She shot back, her voice sharp, defensive. This is family, Lara. You don't go running to the board over a mistake. I told you, I'll fix it. But it didn't feel like a mistake. This was betrayal. Betrayal of our parents, of me, and even of the company she claimed to love so much. I'll talk to you tomorrow, I muttered, ending the call before she could say another word. I collapsed onto the couch, the weight of it all pressing down on me. That night, I hardly slept. Images of Nora, her pleading face, her words echoing in my mind. But beneath that, a simmering anger started to grow. She wasn't just hurting herself, she was hurting all of us. And she expected me to keep quiet, to cover for her, like this was just some petty secret. I couldn't let her get away with this. The more I thought about it, the more I realized what I had to do. The next morning, I drove back to the office and sat down with Derek. I handed him every file I'd uncovered, every transaction I'd traced. He looked at me, his face a mix of shock and concern. Are you sure you want to do this, Lara? He asked, his tone gentle. This is your sister. Yes, I replied firmly, the weight of my decision settling heavily in my chest. She crossed a line, Derek. She crossed a lot of lines. The board was called in for an emergency meeting later that week. Nora had no idea what was coming. She walked into the conference room, her face lighting up with her usual confident smile when she saw me. But her expression quickly shifted as she noticed the somber looks around the table. What's going on? She asked, a flicker of unease crossing her face. I took a deep breath, my heart racing. Nora, we need to talk about some discrepancies in the financials. Her face drained of color. She shot me a panicked look, then tried to cover it with a forced laugh. Lara, We've already discussed this. I told you, I'm handling it. Nora, I said, my voice steady but cold, this is beyond handling. The board has seen the files. They know about the money. Her mouth opened and closed, her eyes darting to the board members, to Derek, and then back to me. Lara, she whispered, her voice cracking. How could you do this? I clenched my jaw, refusing to let her manipulate me. This isn't about me, Nora. It's about what you've done. Mom and Dad trusted us with this company, and you, I swallowed, feeling my voice shake, you betrayed that trust. She looked around the room, her expression pleading. Please, I can explain. It was just a temporary situation. I was going to fix it. Mr. Fisher, the board chair, held up his hand. Nora, we've heard enough. The evidence is clear. As of today, you're no longer CFO of Cartwright Solutions. Her face twisted in desperation, her calm, composed mask finally cracking. No, please, this is my company. I've put in years of work, dedication. And that's exactly why this is so devastating, Nora, Derek said, his voice filled with disappointment. We trusted you. We all did. She turned back to me, her eyes flashing with anger. I never thought you'd stab me in the back like this, Lara. You've always been jealous, haven't you? Just waiting for a chance to tear me down. A surge of anger rose in me. Jealous? Are you serious? I've done nothing but try to support you, Nora. But what you did, taking our parents' hard work and using it like a personal ATM, that's on you. Her face contorted, and she stormed out of the room without another word. I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness watching her go. This was the end of her reign, the end of the responsible sister's perfect image. The board was left to clean up the mess she'd left behind, and I was left grappling with a strange emptiness where my sister used to be. The fallout was intense. Nora was forced to sell her shares in the company to cover the money she'd stolen, and she and Sam lost their home. Word spread quickly through West Hartford, and our parents were devastated. They tried to reach out to Nora, but she refused to speak to them, blaming them for letting this happen, for not being there when she needed them. I felt the strain, too. Friends, family, everyone seemed to have an opinion. Some supported me, others said I'd betrayed her. But I knew I'd done the right thing, even if it meant losing her. I couldn't let her destroy everything our family had built just because she refused to take responsibility for her actions. Months passed, and I threw myself into the company, trying to repair the damage she'd done. It was tough, but bit by bit, we started to rebuild. The board eventually appointed me as CFO, a position I'd never wanted but accepted for the sake of keeping Cartwright Solutions alive. Then, one day, out of the blue, I got a letter. It was from Nora. Lara. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't think I can even forgive myself. I let you down. I let everyone down. But part of me still believes you could have handled this differently. I trusted you, and you destroyed me. I guess you got what you wanted in the end, the company, the respect. Maybe I was wrong to think I could count on you. But maybe I was wrong about a lot of things. Take care of Mom and Dad. They deserve better than me. Nora. I read the letter a dozen times, each word cutting into me like a knife. There was no apology, no admission of guilt, only bitterness and blame. She still didn't understand that her actions had consequences, that she'd lost everything not because of me, but because of herself. I folded the letter and put it away, feeling a strange sense of closure. I'd done everything I could to save the family, even if it meant sacrificing my relationship with her. And in the end, I knew I'd done the right thing. Years went by. The company slowly recovered, and Mom and Dad found peace in their retirement. As for Nora, she disappeared from our lives. I heard rumors that she'd moved to a small town upstate, divorced Sam, and started over. Sometimes, I'd find myself wondering if she ever thought about what she'd lost, about what might have been if she'd chosen a different path. But life went on. I'd saved Cartwright Solutions, kept our parents' legacy alive, and in the process, I'd discovered a strength I hadn't known I possessed. And though I'd lost my sister, I'd gained something just as precious, my own sense of integrity. In the end, it wasn't the revenge I'd imagined. But it was justice.